This episode of the Rocker Skating Podcast is brought to you by John Wilson Blades. For more than 329 years, John Wilson has been perfecting the art of blade making in Sheffield, England. And while their history runs deep, their eyes are always on the future. That's why they created the Revolution, the world's most advanced figure skating blade. It is the perfect fusion of centuries old craftsmanship and cutting edge technology, delivering unmatched precision, responsiveness, and performance. That's why the majority of world and Olympic champions trust John Wilson. Because when history meets innovation, you get the revolution. All right, before we start, I just want to give a little bit of two plugs. One is rocker pins are still out there. They are getting snapped up by skaters. I have brought a lot of pins, one to trade, but two also skaters want pins and they're excited to get some of these things. So they are for sale on my website, rockerskating.com/pins. It is a great way if you want to support what I'm doing in rocker skating and all that. If you're able to, that is a thing that you can do. They do ship domestically in the U.S. They do ship internationally. I will not be able to get to them until I get home from Milan, but thank you for your support, everyone who has supported and bought and stuff. This is, as you know, I give everything out to the public at no cost. And so if you are able to support, please do. If you aren't, your following is also just perfectly fine because I can't do this without you all. Second plug is that the Rocker Skating Live app, speaking of improvements, is out. And if you go to live.rockerskating.com, you will see this sort of side site that is starting to come up. Who knows? Eventually, everything might migrate over there. But in the meantime, the Rocker Skating Live web app is going to be the home for really live practice notes, competition, play-by-plays, all of that stuff. If you have tested it and used it already, I've gotten really good feedback. It's very cool. Like literally, you just have it up on your screen and it will just refresh and update with all the latest stuff. You don't need to press refresh. You don't need to do any sort of updating. You don't need to reload your browser. If you are excited about practice notes and you want to feel like you are watching me type, it's literally that. So go there. There's also a Prediction Central functionality. It is proto fantasy figure skating. I will be putting on more fantasy skating later on, but this is go and pick your top five and pick your top five that you think you will win and pick top five that you want to win. And the top five that you think will win for all of the disciplines, we will add all of that up. And the first, second, and third in those will get a prize. I am figuring out the point system as I go, and I will also figure out tiebreakers because I'm sure there will be ties. Anyway, go and do that. I think over 1,000 people have already signed up, and so go do that. The team event is open now. The individual events will be open very soon. And one other thing about the live app is that you're going to be able to do your own fan scoring. So if you're ever sitting at home being like, yeah, I wouldn't have scored it that way. Well, you can score it yourself now. You're able to basically look at my live play-by-play and like kind of be a judge. And each element you can score the GOEs. And then for the 3 component marks, you can make your own components and you'll get a score at the end. And you'll be able to get your score compared to what the actual score from the judges were. So there are a lot of interesting analytics that I want to do out of this, but I think it's going to be a fun thing for the fans. So go to live.rockerskating.com. It is a web app, so it's not an app. It will probably be at some point, but for this to be launched this quickly, it needed to be on the website. But again, you can kind of use it like an app. All right, that was the plug for the pins and for the app.
New year, new me? Cute. But how about new year, new money? With Experian, you can actually take control of your finances. Check your FICO score, find ways to save, and get matched with credit card offers, giving you time to power through those New Year's goals you know you're going to crush. Start the year off right. Download the Experian app. Based on FICO score rate model. Offers and approval not guaranteed. Eligibility requirements and terms apply. Subject to credit check, which may impact your credit scores. Offers not available in all states. See Experian.com for details. Experian.
Welcome to the Rocker Skating Podcast, and this is as always, sponsored by John Wilson Blades. You'll see Michelle's not here with me, but I am here, and Michelle has been very hard at work for NBC. She's a researcher, so any interesting facts that come out of the broadcasts that you hear, both actually on NBC and a little bit on CBC, some of that will likely have come from Michelle. There's a huge team of researchers who does this, and it's really endless work. They are the ones who are always there with me. We're the ones who are holding down the fort in the practice rink, in the main rink, at the mix zone, like all that sort of stuff. So that's what she's doing. All right, we're going to talk about, this is part one of our 5-part Olympics preview. And part one is going to be on the team event. And the team event starts on Friday, and it'll go for 3 days. So it'll be 3 events on the first day, and then the opening ceremony happens, and then there'll be more events on Saturday and Sunday, and then the winners, will be crowned. And so the team event is always one where you get a lot of strategy and a lot of what's going to happen. And the thing is, we don't know who is going to be in the team event, because the entries for the team event are not due until the day before the first events start. And in addition to that, the entries for the subsequent days of the event are also not due either until the day of or the day before, and I'll explain why. So tomorrow, I think tomorrow afternoon, we will know the first group of skaters who will be in the team event, and the first 3 events. So the rhythm dance, that is not true, is it? The rhythm dance, the pairs short program, there we go, and the women's short program are the first 3 to come up. And then we will then also know the entries for the men's short program on Friday. And then on Saturday, right after the men's short program ends and we know who is advancing, the 5 teams that are advancing to the free skate segment, right after the men's short program is done, the free dance selections are due. And then right after the free dance is over at the end of Saturday, the rest of the events are due. So the pairs free, the women's free, and the men's free. So a little bit complicated, but it is to say that we don't know officially who is going to be in any event yet. We do know how how countries have sort of either rumored their teams, or we have actually heard straight from the skaters what's going to happen, or we have seen in the practice sessions who's doing what. So, we what we do know is that Laurence Fournier-Beaudry and Guillaume Cizeron are doing the team event for France. That's what we know. We know that Sarconti and Nico Macchi are doing both segments of the team event for Italy, and those two have been confirmed by the skaters themselves. What we don't know for sure, but we, as in I and others, have heard is that the Team Japan is going to be Kari Sakamoto doing both segments, Mira Kihara doing both segments, Yoshida Morita, they're the only ones there doing both segments for ice dance, and then the men will be split between Yuma Kageyama in the short and Shun Sato in the free. That is what we've heard. So that is a thing. It is not official. And then a couple others that we know are that it is still up in the air whether Ilya Malinin is going to do both or he does the short program and somebody else does the free skate, and we don't know who that somebody else would be. Um, we have not seen Andrew Torgashev or Max Naumov in Milan the last couple of days. He was here. I think both of them were here the very first day of practices. We know that Alyssa Liu and Amber Glenn will be doing the team event and they will be splitting. And based on what I have seen, Alyssa will be doing the short and Amber will be doing the free. Again, not confirmed. And we don't know yet whether Madison Chalk and Evan Bates will do both. And so for each team, you can sub in or split two disciplines max. So you can't do all, if you're the US, you can't split the men and the women and the dance, right? Because that's three disciplines. You can only do two of those. Uh, so that's how that works. But then that's how the strategy is going to go too. Like, until everything is official, nobody knows what's official quite yet, and there's a reason why the countries have held off announcing anything because you might actually want to be strategic based on how the first day goes, and there's a lot of strategy that is in play. Let me give you a quick primer on actually how the team event works because this is what, one, two, three. This is the fourth time we have seen the team event in Olympic competition. This is different than how the team event works at World Team Trophy. And so if you are familiar with World Team Trophy, throw that out the window because it's not how it works. So there are you're basically skating an entire set of 8 segments, right? 2 segments for each of the 4 disciplines. And there will be 10 countries who do the short first. So the short program segment or the rhythm dance segment for all 4 disciplines. And the top 5 move on to do the free skate and free dance segment. And so the dynamics of actually qualifying into the free is actually a very important part of this. One entry per country for each of the segments. And like I said earlier, if you end up qualifying for the free, you can substitute a maximum of 2 of the 4 disciplines with somebody else to skate. So there's again a lot of strategy that potentially goes into this whole thing. Point system wise, this is where it becomes very interesting, or maybe less interesting if you are if that's how you think of it. But it is not based on the number of points people score, right? So if Ilya Malinin gets a 110-point short program and the second place person gets a 90-point short program, uh, that gap doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is the placement. So, um, So you're not necessarily building up accumulating points to build up a lead. You are accumulating ordinal points or placement points, right, to go from one to another. And so in the short, first place gets 10 points, second place gets 9 points, and so on and so forth. That decrements all the way down to 10th place, who gets 1 point, right? And in the pairs event, there'll only be 9 teams, so the last place will be ninth, and ninth place gets 2 points. So that's where it starts. And then once you go into the free, you get 5 teams, and the scoring is actually exactly the same. First place gets 10 points, second place gets 9 points, third place gets 8 points, fourth place gets 7 points, fifth place gets 6 points. And that is a huge part of this because the short program can actually lead to a greater amount of volatility amongst the skaters. Because if somebody bombs, like say somebody is expected to be, in the top 4 or 3 or 4, and they bomb the short program and ends up in like ninth or something, that's the difference of like 5 or 6 total points that could really either kill your chances of making the free skate or kill your chances of making the gold medal, right? Or medal period or podium, whatever placement it is. Uh, so the short program is actually incredibly important, and you want to play a card, right? If you are one of the medal contenders, or if you are really close to getting into the top 5, you want to play a card that is both consistent and good. It's very difficult, right, to actually predict what's going to happen, and therefore the consistency factor is incredibly important. So we'll talk about how all of that ends up affecting all of this as well. But that is also to say, when you get into the free skate, if you have a substantial lead going into the free skate, your chances of keeping that lead is much higher. Because if you are expected to be in second place or whatever in the free skate and you bomb, the lowest you can be is fifth. And the fewest number of points you can get is 6 points, right? Your floor for the short program is 1 point. Your floor for the free skate is 6 points. So it makes a huge difference once you get into the free skate. And oftentimes in the free skate, you are actually just waiting to you're waiting to keep your place. And it's much harder for you to move up than in the short program because so much has already happened and there isn't enough volatility in the free skate for you to actually get the movement that you need, especially if you're down by a lot of points. So that plays into all of this stuff. And so that's sort of how that works. Now, the 10 countries that are in the team event, they qualified out of a bunch of things that happened over the past couple of seasons, including the World Championships, including the Grand Prix this season, all of that. But there were only 10 countries that were eligible to compete because you have to have qualified at least 3 of the 4 disciplines in the individual events, and there were 10 countries exactly that qualified for 3 or 4 of the events. And so, the couple of threes that happened were Poland, who gets a dance team in via the extra spots that they got. So the dance team gets to compete in the team event and the team event only. Same thing with Japan. They qualified everything except for the dance team. And so Yoshida and Morita are going to be doing just the dance event here. And then same thing for Great Britain, who qualified 3 in the individual disciplines, and Edward Appleby will be competing just in the team event. The fourth country that only qualified 3 was South Korea, but they do not have a pairs team who is senior or who is internationally eligible to skate or really a pairs team at all right now. And so they will actually forfeit the pairs event, and they'll get a 0 on it, and, they will compete in the other 3 events. So that's the background of everything. I'm gonna go into a little bit of prediction country here, and bear with me because there's gonna be a lot that we're gonna talk about here. So getting into the free skate, I think the things to watch for is that the very likely countries that will get in are the US, Japan, Georgia, and then it starts getting a little bit murkier. Because right, the it really depends on some of the things that happen and how much menning, frankly, goes on. And so, Italy, Canada are probably your favorites going in to go into the top 5. You then have France, China, and even South Korea, who, even without a pair team, could potentially get themselves into the top 5. That's probably your fight for the top 5 right there, Italy and Canada being the most likely to get in. France sort of in on that bubble and really depends on how, especially how the men skate. Um, but because Fournier, Baudry, and Cicerone are in the rhythm dance, it makes a huge difference. They automatically get probably 9 or 10 points, right? Like they will likely be first or second in the rhythm dance, and it makes a very big difference. Um, China has a well-rounded but sort of middling team, right? Boyang Jin has been very consistent this season, could potentially be up there, especially if others falter. Sui and Han, their strength is the short program, and if they skate a clean short program, they are very much up there for that short. Ru Yangjiang for the women, she's been consistent, and so again, requires a little bit of other people having mistakes for her to get, especially if she can get into the top 6, top 5, that changes their chances of getting into the free. And then, Wang and Lu in ice dance will likely be in the 8th or ninth range, right? And if they can find themselves in 8th, that gives them an extra point and changes the equation a little bit. So, that is a big thing there. South Korea, the interesting about South Korea is Junwan Cha is on a roll right now, and he could potentially get a lot of points. Jia Shin could potentially get a lot of points if she skates clean. Like both of them, right? It really South Korea's chances of getting into the final 5 depend on how their single skaters skate. They will determine basically everything. If the two of them, if Jinwan Cha and Jia Shin can get into the top 3, then they have a fighting chance of going into the free skate. It's not gonna be easy because they're taking a 0 in pairs, and Lim and Quan, based on how the pecking order is in here, right, they're likely, very likely going to be in 7th. And so that's given more or less, right? Dance is more or less given. Uh, Pairs is given because it's a 0, and then the single skaters will have to overperform and also probably hope for, others to make mistakes, but if they can get up there, they have a fighting chance. They are, out of those 5 teams, the least likely to qualify, but that is, it's not out of the realm of possibility. It would still be a surprise, it would still be an upset, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Great Britain and Poland, they know it. They're happy to be here. They're excited to be here. They're excited, a lot of them, to be skating multiple programs at these Olympics, and they will savor it, but they will not be qualifying to the free skate. Now, I talked about France, I talked about China, I talked about South Korea, but Italy and Canada are interesting, right? Because they not only want to get into the free skate, they also do actually have a chance to be on the podium. This a lot of this is gonna be incredibly close, right? And the this whole, like, 10 first to 10th thing, 10 points to 1 point thing, all of the, like, little shifts and stuff that's going to happen with one little mistake or, whatever it is, 84 points versus 83 points or whatever, that's gonna make a huge difference at the end because it is going to be very close in how, all really how 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th really kind of come together, and then there's a little bit of a gap, and then 1st and 2nd will be a very close race, and that's kind of the high likelihood of what's going to happen, but Canada, right, needs their skaters to skate very well. I mean, especially we're talking about the singles disciplines, which have been their weak spot. And the thing is, Steven Gogolev has found a certain kind of consistency, and so he will need to be consistent, skate cleanly, and all that. Maddie Skeezus skated very well at Canadian Nationals, doubled a loop in the short program, and she can't afford to do that like she did there. But if she skates cleanly, right, she is up there. Like Steven Gogolev, if he can get himself into the top 5, Maddie Skeezus, if she can get herself into the top 5, Canada becomes a much bigger threat for the podium. If Gogolev and Skeezus are in the 6th or 7th territory, they still keep themselves in the running for the top 5. If they are out of those 2 places, then it becomes a much bigger fight to get into the top 5 for Team Canada. Um, but the X factor, right, a bit of an X factor is the fact that, Stellato, Deschamps are not going to be in the team event. We don't know their condition, we don't know if Deanna's going to be able to come to the Olympics. We are still waiting to find that out, but that means Pereira Michaud, the Canadian champs, are going to be in both segments of the competition. And Paremi Show's strength this season has been their short program. And they, if they can get into the top 5, right? Like you get a top 5 finish from Gogolev, Skizas, and Pereira Michaud, combined with a top 3 finish from Gilles Poirier, that is Canada's recipe for being competitive for the podium. And so you're gonna have to really look at every single one of them. They all have to deliver. And frankly, they all have to deliver just to get into the free skate, and they all have to deliver really well to get onto the podium. But, I think out of those 5 that I talked about, they are the ones who are probably the farthest away from the podium, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, the next thing is Italy. The X factor there is Sarakanti and Nicomachi. Because of her injury and that she's recovering from a tear in her knee and she's not 100%, she's going to be skating 4 programs in 2.5 weeks. And it's going to be, the short, I think, is going to be much less of an issue, right? Her knee hurts when she takes off for a Salchow, when she lands throws weirdly, when she picks off for a twist. Those are the 3 major elements in the short program, and there's a lot of those in the free skate. So, she the thing with them is that they need to both do well in the short and in the free for them to be in contention for a medal, and it really depends on how her condition is for the free skate. I don't doubt that they will be pretty good in the short program, but the free skate is a much, much larger minefield, and that's gonna be the thing that probably will make or break them. But also the other thing that will make or break them is what happens with the men. And for the men, Daniel Grosso, we've kind of expected him to be the guy who possibly would do both of the segments, but he's not had a great last month and a half, and, his Europeans was not great. Um, Italian nationals was okay, like, he had a great short and then a free skate that he probably wants to redo, and so you wonder what's going to happen, like, do they put him in the short and Matteo in the free? Matteo Rizzo? We don't know quite yet, we haven't seen them this week, we haven't heard anything, so, they're coming to Milan. I think they just arrived today, and so we'll hear more about them soon. And tomorrow will be much more of an indication of what might happen with their assignments for the team event. So Conti Machi and whatever happens with the men is going to be a huge factor. And then I think the two that will be very interesting to watch, right, is Laranaki Gutman skates a clean short. She could very well be up there, top 3, top 4, right? Like that's what she would be wanting to be in for them to be in contention for a medal. And Guignard Fabry in the dance event, right? They are very much top 5 here. If they can get 4th, it makes a huge difference. If they can get 3rd, it makes a very big difference. Like, those are things that make a very, very big difference because of the relativity of everybody kind of stacking on top of each other. And you lose a point here or gain a point here, it changes the whole game. Georgia. Georgia is coming with a full team of individuals. And by that, I mean they literally only have one senior man, one senior woman, one senior pair team, and one senior dance team who are, I believe, right now, are the only ones who are internationally skating on the senior event. And so they're all here and they're all really good. And they right now for me, they are the on paper the favorites for the bronze in the team event. Again, very very close. It's going to be very close. But Nika Gatse, your European champion, your new European champion, he needs to deliver like he has never delivered before in both programs because getting a top 4 in the short and getting a top 3, maybe even a top 2 in the free skate really helps, Team Georgia get into that podium spot. Anastasia Gubanova, same thing. She's got the goods to be in the top 4, top 3 in the short program. And then if we think about who, we just talked about, right, Japan, US, Georgia, Italy, Canada, she could be top 3 in the free skate, right? Like, um, that's gonna be, a crucial one for them as well. Diana Davis, Gleb Smokin are probably, based on how it looks, probably going to be 6th in the short, the rhythm dance, and then probably going to be 4th in the free dance, and so the their variation is not going to be much. If, however, Davis and Smokin drop to 7th, it, like, changes the game, right? Lim and Kwan could be a bit of a spoiler, right, depending on how those 2 teams match up against each other here, in the team event. And then pairs, Metelkina Barulova, they could really be the ones who clinch everything, right? If especially if they can go and win one or both of the segments in pairs, that changes the game for Georgia, and that makes them a much bigger favorite for the bronze. They have an outside chance at getting into the top 2, but the top 2 on paper are very much a fight between the US and for the US and Japan. So much could happen here. We know, right, that Japan is likely going to be sending 3 individuals and 1 split. So Sakamoto, Miura Kihara, Yoshida Morita are going to do both, and then Kageyama does the short, and Shun Sato does the free. And so if you take that as your base, Yuma Kageyama against Ilya Malinin, who we know is very very likely going to be doing the short program, unless Ilya has a mistake, um, you know, Yuma here though is probably where he can actually gain a point over the US, right? If what happened at the Grand Prix final happens here where Yuma skates a clean program and Ilya has a mistake, that changes things. But Ilya needs to be pretty good in the short program. That is one that he can't take for granted, if the US is to win this thing, because Ilya has to really has to win the short program for the US to have some kind of a good buffer, right? Um, the women is interesting because uh, it's as if what we believe is true, it's Sakamoto versus Liu in the short, Sakamoto versus Glenn in the free. The switcheroo could happen, right? That Alyssa Liu could win the short program, Kari Sakamoto could win the short program. Amber Glenn could win the free skate. Kari Sakamoto could win the free skate. All of that can be true. Um, if Kari Sakamoto skates cleanly in the free skate, she wins. If Alyssa Liu skates cleanly in the short program, she's